Hello, how are you today?
Very good, thank you.
How long did you live in Vietnam for?
I first visited Vietnam in 2014. When I first arrived at Vietnam, I saw a lot of potential, so I decided to start a business and buy land.
What potential did you see?
Since Vietnam is an NIC, its economic growth is something we cannot ignore.
Thank you for the information. Today you will be answering 9 questions about Vietnam's industrialization. Are you ready?
Yes, go ahead.
Compared to China, Korea, or Japan, Vietnam started its industrialization really late. If you look at the population pyramid and the income graph from Gapminder, Vietnam has started developing recently. What are the key factors that prevented Vietnam to industrialize earlier?
In my opinion, the main cause of the delayed industrialization is the World War II and the Vietnamese War. Vietnam was in a big trouble since Japanese started invading Vietnam. Fortunately, political leader Ho Chi Minh formed the Viet Minh for the independence of Vietnam. As Japan lost World War II, their forces left Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh seized control, creating an independent country around Hanoi and declared a Democratic Republic of Vietnam. On the opposite side, the French made a separate country. Both sides wanted unity, but Ho Chi Minh wanted communism, while Bao Dai wanted a country with close economic ideas to the West.
It's very lucky that the war stopped with not much damage.
Not really. As America intervened, the small fights turned to wars. China and the Soviet Union gave power to the North, while US helped the South. This made things unnecessarily big, since US increased the financial and military aid in order to limit and eradicate the spread of communism. After the Vietnamese War that lasted 17 years, Vietnam was completely annihilated. Vietnam desperately tried to recover, but the lasting effect of the war was not easy to control, with approximately 3 million deaths and the southern Vietnam completely destroyed. Vietnam took a massive damage. Some say that it was the early 21st century when they recovered, and some say Vietnam is still recovering.
I have heard a lot about Vietnamese coffee, and currently Vietnam is the second largest coffee producer. The world's largest coffee producer is Brazil, but in my opinion, Vietnam will overtake Brazil in coffee exporting due to favorable climate conditions and low cost production. Like coffee, many people believe that Vietnam, as time passes, will overtake many countries in product exports. What other types of industries are Vietnam well known for? Where are these industries/factories located?
Vietnam is growing currently to be the wealthiest country in Southeast Asia by trading. Vietnam trades numerous things, but their main export to the world are phones at $45.1 billion profit, textiles and electronic goods at a whopping $25.9 billion. There are more than 6,000 textile companies in Vietnam. This shows that textiles are one of the leading industries in Vietnam.
Will Vietnam overtake China in textiles export?
China is currently at first place in textile export to the US, but in my opinion, Vietnam will surpass China, since the conditions for setting up shops are more economically convenient as China's land price rises while Vietnam remains low for now. And these industries are usually located in Ho Chi Minh City. The reason is because as Vietnam grew, many foreign investment led to high-rise buildings and office space in the urban centers like Ho Chi Minh City. Massive support from the government and the direct GDP contribution made laws that are favorable to the sector.
Can you specify?
When creating buildings, if there's nothing around, it's easier to build new buildings. Hanoi, compared to Ho Chi Minh City, wasn't that devastated during the World War II and the Vietnamese War. So Hanoi had many outdated buildings that were very hard to take care of. But unlike Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City didn't have anything around that much, making it easier to build new buildings and utilities for people to live.
I have heard that Vietnam used to earn profit by agriculture in the past, but as Vietnam started industrializing, did Vietnam change its strategy in gaining money? If they did or did not change, why?
Vietnam has pursued export-oriented industrialization. This idea is called the Doi Moi in Vietnam. The Vietnamese government seeks for FDI and was granted permission to join global economy and achieved to get an addition to the WTO in January 2007. The reason Vietnam pursued the Doi Moi was because of the inefficiency of the previous economic policy. Doi Moi means renovation in English. Luckily, the idea of changing the economical system was a success. Vietnam is well known for its abundant resources and its trading system developed rapidly. The living condition improved greatly as a consequence of frequent trading, and the GDP grew exponentially.
I learned some history of industrialization in Vietnam. Now I want to know about the present. What does the country look like today? Also, do you think Vietnam is an emerging economic power or NIC?
GDP in Vietnam in 2017 was 223.86 billion US dollars. An average of 68.75 billion US dollar were gained in Vietnam from 1985 until 2017. However, Vietnam is very different compared to 10 years ago. Everything changed rapidly and the growth of GDP has been increasingly by approximately 15% annually. That is a big increase, and a sign that Vietnam will be a very industrialized country after a few years. This is the reason why foreign investors spend their money on buying real estate in Vietnam. Looking at their development rate, GDP growth rate, population rate, and fertility rate, Vietnam is definitely a country worth investing.
I definitely learned that Vietnam is worth investing people's money on, but due to all the fast industrialization, I'm sure that there are some costs. For example, due to fast industrialization, China is currently suffering from air pollution. What are some of the costs of industrialization in Vietnam?
Despite the fact that Vietnam has achieved an average GDP growth of 11%, due to improper treatment, many environmental issues were created. One example is the Kusing River, polluted by mining activities in Tintuk. Water pollution isn't the only harm to the environment. Another main issue is the increasing population and the improper farming technique. Vietnamese use a farming technique called slash and burn. This is useful if and only if you don't need food for a certain period of time, since this technique takes a long period of time. But with the increasing population, there won't be enough food to support the city's demands. This would force Vietnamese people to shorten this cycle, inevitably causing soil degradation and erosion.
As you lived in Vietnam for 5 years, what changes in employment structure and labor force change did you see over time?
The main change is the work permits for foreign employees. I'm a foreign worker in Vietnam. Employees want to expand the definition of a manager to accept foreign experts with one of the following conditions. Either the expert has an acknowledgement by company's headquarters as an expert, an attainment of a bachelor's degree or equivalent, or having at least 3 years experience in the relevant industry. This opens new opportunities and motivation for workers and employees, and is also benefiting the company because this means that anyone who worked hard and achieved at least one of the following conditions gets a chance to be a manager of the company.
What do you think about the recent rule change in employment structure and labor force?
Vietnam had a recent labor rule change, which brought various benefits to the employees and the companies, but something good for the employees is potentially harming the company and vice versa. So there will be benefits and harms.
You know that I'm a student in South Korea. I'm really curious about the educational system in Vietnam. Were there any changes in Vietnamese education system as it industrialized?
Despite the students wanting education, public school system is very outdated. These are one of the main issues of the school. The Vietnamese education system prefers discipline rather than discussions and interaction. Despite the fact many Vietnamese children eventually graduate successfully, majority of them start working for small companies and industries.
Citizens are greatly affected by the industrialization in Vietnam. What role has the government done to assist or stop industrialization?
There are several issues that the Vietnamese government is trying to help regarding the educational system in Vietnam. Most often, Vietnamese schools are underfunded and lacking teachers. However, the Vietnamese government is trying their best in changing the education system into a better way by investing over 21% of government spending.
What are some challenges that Vietnam has to go through in order to maintain a stable economy and enhance the welfare of citizens?
In my opinion, there are five main challenges that the Vietnam has to overcome in order to achieve a stable economy and enhance the welfare of citizens. First, stabilize the financial market by creating market-friendly laws. Vietnam has an outstanding international trading system, but the Vietnamese market itself is not very supported by the government. Second, they need to change the cheap labor cost. For an owner of a company, one reason I chose Vietnam as a workplace is because of the cheap labor cost. Third, economic development is unevenly distributed, and there are areas that are outdated. For example, my workplace that is located in Ho Chi Minh City is incomparable to many places in Vietnam. The fourth, Vietnam is suffering due to environmental issues. Pollution from industrialization will be a huge problem if the government don't try to resolve the problem immediately. Last but not least, social justice and laws are very undeveloped in Vietnam. Without a proper resolution for these challenges, Vietnam will have major problems in a coming future.